Welcome, everyone, to All Things Brunswick. Tonight we have a very special show. We are continuing with our recognition of veterans and their families. We are going to be discussing a very serious subject this evening, soldier suicide. And with us, we have the mom, Gay Murga, of Captain Austin Murga, who took his life, unfortunately, when he returned from Iraq. Is that correct?
Afghanistan.
Gay? Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Okay. And before I go any further, I want to thank my co-host, Todd, for being with us, and our tech, TK. We couldn't do anything without TK. He's the glue that holds us all together here. Anyway, welcome, Gay.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks so much for coming back to talk with us.
Thank you for having me on your podcast.
And I'm sure that there are folks out there that have never, who didn't hear you last year when you were with us. So if you don't mind, could you tell them a little bit about you? And
Yes.
okay.
So I would have never thought that I'd be standing here today, but after my son died of military PTSD, my son made a comment the first time I saw him after he returned from Afghanistan's deployment, and I didn't understand it. And then 6 months later, when he died by PTSD suicide, I wanted to understand a statement that he had made. And so that began my hundreds of hours of research. And that put a fire under me with all my research, realizing the crisis we are in on this issue. So I became an ambassador, an activist for the issue, speaking to anyone and everyone I could to our sweet term to help my son's Joes. So my son, Captain Austin Murga, was a remarkable young man. At the age of 25, as a lieutenant, he and his Company C of 114 soldiers received their papers to go and fight frontline in Afghanistan for 10 months. Specifically, the 3rd Brigade, 2nd Battalion, 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, Company C, 114 brave young men. And my son so loved his Joes and looked after them on and off the battlefield. But my son, along with way too many soldiers, and I use the word soldier generically, I mean all active military and vets from all branches of our military, way too many of these soldiers are dying by military PTSD. And there are strong reasons. What I hope I present today well is shared knowledge from my hundreds of hours of research and trying to understand my son. I hope to share with you just the depth of this crisis, the whys. There are so many of our brave soldiers dying by PTSD suicide, and some powerful solutions right here in North Carolina. So let me start with that comment that my son made. He was stationed at Fort Bragg, and the first time he came to visit us, around a month after his return from deployment, he was out in the backyard, and one of my neighbors graciously and joyfully ran over and gave my son Austin a big old hug, and she said, "Austin, I'm so glad you're back from the war." And my son made two comments that neither her nor I understood. And he said, no, to be honest with you, I'm not. I'd rather be back in war. And neither her nor myself understood what my son meant by that statement. She asked, well, why? Why would you rather be back in war? And my son's answer was simply because I had purpose. Mm-hmm. I had real purpose. Mm-hmm. Well, my son sadly hid his PTSD struggle very well, but 6 months after returning, he died in that battle that he fought so gallantly. And after his death, I was reminded of those two statements he made when he first returned from deployment. And I wanted to understand my son better. So I started doing hundreds of hours of research, trying to understand it. And from my hundreds of hours of research, I got angrier and angrier. And I got more and more concerned as to the terrible crisis that the statistics were showing. So I got determined that I had to pick up where my son left off. Because my son so loved his Joes. He was always helping them. If it was divorce, or if it was alcoholism, or if it was financial difficulties, or PTSD struggles, he was always there helping them, wanting to build the best he could of their character. My son was a phenomenal leader, and he so loved his Joes that I felt like I had to pick up where he left off. Mm-hmm. So I started there at Fort Bragg, and believe it or not, with the help of some high-ranking officers, I got in to meet the commanding general of the 82nd Airborne, General Donahue, because I wanted to be able to speak to as many Joes there at Fort Bragg as I could to try to stop others from struggling with PTSD. And I've been after that on that base 40 times speaking to soldiers, and it hasn't stopped. It's one reason why I'm here today. I have to be honest with you. It's not easy.
Of course
it's not a topic that is easy for me, but I get determined to speak, because if I can save one soul, then I've done good for the Lord.
Yes.
I feel like I'm in the Lord's army now, as my son is in the Lord's army now. By Joe, with the strength and grace of God, I can do this. So, purpose. I was trying to understand what purpose meant, why my son said he had real purpose, why in the heck he'd want to go back to war. Well, I have to say the single most one thing that helped me to understand those two expressions, those two emotions, was the book Tribe. The book Tribe is written by Sebastian Junger, and it's only, 8 by 5 inches, only 137 pages. I have to admit, I also don't like reading, but I have to so recommend this book to anyone listening. May you have someone, know someone that is in the military, was in the military, are in the military, or are a vet. It solidifies the understanding of why a soldier would want to go back to war, why a soldier would feel that they had not just purpose, but real purpose, as my son said. Mm-hmm. I want to say that Sebastian Junger, his grandfather was an American Indian. And as a little boy, his great-grandfather and grandfather would talk about the good old days, being a member of the American Indian tribe, and how it's so unlike modern society today here in America, and how alienating our culture is, and how thus it is so toxic, and why so many people are struggling with depression and suicide ideation, not just our military, not just our vets, but civilians as well, because of the toxic culture that we are now in. One sentence that he explains that I think just is so poignant about what is a tribe is he says, think who you would give your last bit of food to.
Mm-hmm.
It's your tribe, an American Indian tribe, a platoon, a squadron. They're a tribe. 6 key elements that are so beautiful. They have solidarity. They support each other. They have purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They have real purpose. They're a cohesive community. They have a sense of belonging, and they are of feeling necessary. Those are all the bare necessities of being a human being. And that so explains what the American Indian tribe had.
Right.
Let me read a paragraph that summarizes it so well. He writes that this book is why that tribal sentiment is such a rare and precious thing in modern society, and how the lack of it has affected us all. It's about what we can learn from tribal societies about loyalty and belonging in the internal human quest for meaning, for purpose. It's about why, for many people, war feels better than peace,
Mm-hmm.
and how hardship can turn out to be a great blessing, and disasters are sometimes remembered with so fondly, more fondly than weddings or tropical vacations. Humans don't mind hardship. In fact, they thrive on it. What they mind is not feeling necessary.
Right.
Modern society has perfected the art of making people not feel necessary. How poignant.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very powerful book. I highly recommend all to read it.
Great. Let me just give our audience a few statistics on this particular subject. I have been speaking with veterans now for the last few weeks as we continue our show to recognize them. And some of the comments that these guys have said to me just blew me away. I, like you, Gay, did not understand what they were saying to me. And then I had to
Yes.
stop and think about it. One gentleman said to me, I don't want to die, but I don't know how to live. And so soldier suicide is not as, I don't know how to put this, important as it should be to our country. This is how I feel. Soldier suicide is not as important to our country as it should be.
I think largely because the general society doesn't know how strong of a crisis it is in America.
Exactly. And what's happening is when our people are coming back from from being deployed, okay, from being kept on their toes, so to speak, 24/7 to quiet. When they return to the States, there is no transition period for them.
I agree.
There is no, there is no
In the military, they
offering-
call it a reintegration program.
exactly.
And you want to
that.
know, my son, when his battalion of 4,500 soldiers returned that night at the green field of Fort Bragg, within hours, once they got off that plane and marched to the Greenfield hangar, they were all released to either their apartment, their
Right.
home,
Right.
or their barracks.
Yeah. And you see they're coming back and they're not having any type of understanding the transition from this 24/7 to practically
Correct.
nothing.
Correct.
Okay. And so therefore they don't feel they have purpose.
Right. That is one significant reason of my 6 significant reasons as to why there is such a high PTSD
Yes.
rate.
Yes.
Because there's no reintegration program.
Right.
Consider World War II.
Yeah.
They would have 2, 4, sometimes even more weeks between being in hostile territory to being on that ship, being brought back to the States.
Way back
That
to
was a reintegration program of some degree.
right. But way back to World War II, World War I even, more than 1 in 10 United States veterans has become an alcoholic. And this
Yes.
is termed as self-medicating
All right.
because they don't know what else to do.
Right.
It takes all the thought process away for a little time anyway.
Right. My research and my being on that base, Fort Bragg, 100 times talking to soldiers of all different ranks, is yes, the most common symptoms of PTSD is abuse of alcohol and our drugs
Yep.
and our sex, alienation, anger. But you know what? This book has a great explanation. I want everyone out there to know who's struggling with PTSD that it's a healthy response. You are not sick. You are not weak. You're not with a psychological disorder. It is a healthy response, and this book, Tribe, so well defines it. Page 74 states, page 74 states, excuse me. '74 states, PTSD, from an evolutionary perspective, it's exactly the response you want to have when your life is in danger or was in danger. You want to be vigilant. You want to avoid situations where you are not in control. They start becoming antisocial. You want to react to strange noises. It's the reason why so many vets cannot attend 4th of July
Right.
celebrations. You want to sleep lightly. Most PTSD strugglers have terrible sleep. You want to sleep lightly because you want to wake up easily. You want to have flashbacks and nightmares that remind you of specific threats to your life. And you want to be, by turns, angry and depressed, because anger keeps you ready to fight,
Right.
and depression keeps you from being too active and putting yourself in more danger. You see, flashbacks are served to remind you of the danger that's out there. It's a highly efficient single event survival learning mechanism. All humans react to trauma in this way, and most mammals do as well. It may be unpleasant, but it's preferable to getting killed.
It's a normal reaction.
It is.
Let's face it.
It is.
And the programs that are offered to our vets, 50% of them have nothing dealing with PTSD, have nothing dealing with transition from combat to nothing. And that is very sad. I have researched every program that we have available in this country. Over 50% of them have nothing. They don't even talk about it.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't understand that, given the fact that when the percentages of the guys coming back, like, for instance, Vietnam, my husband had PTSD. And I believe that everybody that he was with in country had PTSD. He self-medicated himself, just like everybody did. It was the thing to do.
Yes.
You didn't have to think about it.
Alcoholism in our Vietnam vets is in our...
Absolutely.
It
and
was
when it
very
was
common.
finally recognized, by that time,
Yes.
it was too late for a lot of them. And it took them many, many years to recognize it.
Yeah, the alienation of our culture started with the Vietnam War. I
Yes,
mean,
it did.
consider World War II, World War I, they came back superheroes. They were greatly appreciated. Starting
But
with the Vietnam War, they
World
were
War
actually
II
spat on.
World War II soldiers had PTSD.
Oh, they
though.
did. But they did.
Yeah.
But at least they weren't alienated because they were considered superheroes. Our
We're
Vietnam
not
vets.
alienating you, Todd. So sorry.
Yeah,
What
our
are
vets-
your thoughts, Todd?
Well, I'm a bit biased. I was born and raised at Fort Bragg,
Right.
and so I've unfortunately seen a lot of it. And
I'm sure you
I
have.
think part of it is too, and it goes to what you're saying. Their purpose in combat is not only to stay alive themselves, but to keep their people alive.
Their tribe.
Yeah, my father and my father-in-law both always had this saying, said there's two things you'll never find in a foxhole. That's a racist or an atheist. They don't care. They're all praying to God, and they're all hoping to get each other out.
Yep.
Because if one man falls, the rest are at more risk.
Yes.
You know, so there's none of this racial mess or any of that.
Right.
But when they come back, that is such an intense requirement in combat that when they come back, they no longer feel like they have that responsibility or that kind of
Right.
control or that kind of power. And
Right, it's
so
loss.
then they feel like they have nothing.
Yes. It's another reason General Donahue and I discussed was that he realized that, yes, they come back so alienating, but specifically what he realized is that he was relatively immediately turning them around and relocating them to another state, to another
With transfers
company.
and all, yeah.
Talking about separation
Well, and,
from their
and
tribe.
both my father and my father-in-law were offered multiple field commissions, but they had to leave their units
Yes.
to go through training to be officers and all, and both of them refused every time. They weren't leaving their tribe.
No.
You know, they had already been through combat. My dad was 101st Airborne Infantry, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. So when it came to his troops, no, he was not leaving them no matter what. They could have told him, we're going to make you a 2-star. And he just said no, because he was not going to leave his men.
And
Right.
on that note, I'm so sorry we have to stop and pay some bills, but folks, please stay with us. We'll be back shortly. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, Attorney at Law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, folks, to All Things Brunswick. Today we have a very special guest with us. Gay Murga is here, and we are discussing soldier suicide. Gay lost her son to just that after he returned from deployment in Afghanistan. And we're talking about what we need in this country for these people who come back from combat and get thrown into normalcy, quote unquote. I guess that's the only way I know how to put it. I know that 140,000 veterans have committed suicide since 2001. And I'm sure each and every one of them had PTSD. I'm sure that most of them had no transition period from being deployed to normal life again. And I am sure that they fought desperately to try to keep it together, and they lost.
Yeah, I want to share with you 3 statistics as to just how much of a crisis this is in America. And I find it to be a security crisis. And our White House has labeled it as a security crisis. 3 statistics that profoundly state the level of the crisis: military PTSD, suicide. The Americans Warrior Partnership, along with Duke University, did a study that was released in 2018, and where some of us may have heard of the standard quote from our government that 22 vets die a day by military PTSD suicide, but their research of the number of suicides between 2014 and 2018 indicate that it was 44 a day. Mm-hmm. I want all of you to grab your calculator on your phone, and I want you to do 44 times 365 days in a year times 20 years that this war has gone on, and you'll be shocked at the numbers. And it continues. Here's another study that was done by Brown University's Watson Institute, and the results were published June 21 of 2021. They said at the time approximately 70,000 during this 20-year war. I call it the 20-year war. Government calls it the global war on terrorism. It lasted 20 years. 7,000 approximately were killed in action versus over 30,000 active military and vets. And then that number is rising. One more statistic I want to share, and that is the cost that our Department of VA, our government, estimates that they're going to spend on PTSD assistance. The gross estimates of treating vets with PTSD will reach over $950 billion. Mm-hmm. You realize that's almost $1 trillion.
That's what we spend on the Department of Defense.
Mm-hmm. Far exceeding the cost of the 20-year war.
Right.
The numbers are shocking.
Well, and I also statistically stated that 58,000 died in the Vietnam War, but they aren't counting the ones that took their own life when they came back. So
Yes.
every time somebody says to me, we lost 58,000 in Vietnam, I just shake my head and say, no, that is incorrect.
Right. That's the reason why I like Duke universities and Brown University to study better. Our government and their statistics of 22 a day leave out certain things, to my understanding. They leave out National Guard and the Reserve. And if anyone's out there, if you were in the National Guard or the Reserve during this 20-year war, you got deployed. They also leave out any vet that dies by a drug overdose. But we all know that the most common symptoms of military PTSD is alcohol abuse and or drug abuse.
Right. Yep.
I want to share with all the vets and active military out there that's listening, and all the loved ones that you may know that are struggling with PTSD, that there are 6 solid reasons, 6 reasons why there's such a crisis in America. We've tapped on a couple of them. My reading of the paragraph about why it's a healthy response to not sleep, because you want to be awake. But the other reason is this fight or flight mode that our brain does. It's a beautiful feature. House catches on fire, your child is drowning in the pool, your dog is getting attacked by an alligator. It's a beautiful feature, but it's only meant to be on in our neuron system for 5-15 minutes at the most. Our soldiers, remember I'm using that term generically, when they're in hostile territory, it's on 24/7. Take a deployment that's 9, 10, 12 months long. It has been proven, I have read report after report, study by study, by various medical institutes and universities, that it literally does brain damage. It literally reduces the hypothalamus campus area of the brain. The other common reason why there's such a crisis is the fact that unlike any other war, number one, World War II lasted 3.5 years. Our Vietnam War lasted 9 years. This global war on terrorism lasted 20 years. And it was the only war with no draft. Now, how in the world does a government pull that off? It's called multiple deployments. So unlike any other war, it is common to come across soldiers and vets that have done 5, 10, 15 deployments. Yeah. How in the world can any human being come back without PTSD?
Well, that started with Vietnam, because there were several who did multiple deployments to Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
even with the draft.
Even with the draft.
The Vietnam War had the draft.
I had a very dear friend who went 3 times.
My uncle went 3 times.
Yep.
They also use stop loss.
Right.
You could get home and you're getting ready to be released from the Army, and they say, nope, we're stop loss, and you're redeploying.
Yep.
And turn around and send them right back.
Yep, that's true.
Right. Here's the third most common reason why there is such a high PTSD rate. They have done study after study, including Pacific bases here in America. Military career is brain damaging. It's not just that fight or flight mode that your neuron system is generating 24/7 for 9, 10, 12 months of deployment, but the practicing of grenade throwing, the shoulder positioned rocket propelled missile throwers, the Navy men and women that are on the platform of these large carriers out in the sea where jets are landing and taking off. That sound wave, it can be very damaging to the brain. 82nd Airborne, all those parachute jumpings. It's classic. If you're in the 82nd Airborne or we're in
Knees
the
and
82nd
ankles.
Airborne, you've got bad knees, you've got bad ankles, you've got a bad back, but they never address the damage it does to the brain. The brain is about the consistency of a stick of butter in the refrigerator, encased within this very hard cranium with many sharp points. You've got to be joking if your knees and backs and ankles are the only thing that's going to get damaged.
Right.
Well, and here's part of what they miss too is anytime you have a spinal injury,
Yes?
it affects the brain.
I did not know that.
Yes, the spinal, anything that's wrong with the spinal cord, even when you get spinal compression, it will affect the brain.
I believe it.
And they know
Everything's
this
connected to the brain.
now. When I
neuron
was
system.
first diagnosed with it, they didn't
Yes.
know that.
Yes.
And so they couldn't explain a lot of things, but they're slowly finding it out. So just imagine you're jumping out of an aircraft and you have 100 pounds worth of extra equipment on your body,
Yeah.
and you're still jumping with the
Right.
same size chute as the guy that's just
Exactly.
carrying a rucksack.
Exactly.
That impact on the ground
Exactly.
and that jamming the spine into the
Yes.
brain, you're going to cause problems.
And for those who don't know, 82nd Airborne parachute is not like those leisure parachutists that you see jumping out
Landing on
of
the
those
beach.
leisure planes. Those parachutes are meant to bring you down fast.
Yes.
Because you do not want to be a shooting target. So you land very hard with very little control of it. So yes, that is just another reason why it is normal, common, and expected to have brain damage. And thus
Absolutely.
PTSD. You are not weak.
This is going through the microphone.
You are
Sandy.
not sick. I'm getting mad.
No,
Don't be mad.
Don't.
All right.
Don't.
So the fourth reason is what this book so well defines. Our soldiers, generically used, are coming back from a very alienating, toxic society. The fifth reason, which we've discussed, Mary, is there's no reintegration program.
None.
And for those who've never been in the military, I often give this illustration to try to best describe what our soldiers are having to do. Imagine you're with your tribe, all your aunts and uncles, all your children, all your nieces, nephews, cousins, siblings. You all live in the same house, the same tribe, and your house catches on fire in the middle of the night. And the trauma of the fire and the heat and the flame and trying to rescue and save and resuscitate all those who are injured. And after the dust settle and the last dead or injured tribal member leaves via an ambulance, you're expected to just dust off the smoke and go back to work. That is so
Yes.
unrealistic. That's shockingly abnormal, and that's what our soldiers are
That's
expected
what
to
they
do
are expected
because there's
to
no
do.
reintegration program.
Right.
The sixth reason is the rapid tendency of our military branches to reassign and move their active military, which alienates them even more when they've just gone through hostile territory for 9, 10, 12 months, and they've been with the most purpose and the most danger, but the most beauty of being with a tribe and having purpose, having greatest connection and solidarity, and then being relocated 3 months after.
Right.
What a joke.
And everything goes, it's almost like in music when you crescendo.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
up here, this is your combat. And then all of a
Yes.
sudden, here, you're home.
Right.
And then when you get transferred, it's like your analogy of the burning house and all, and your tribe burning in the house. And all of a sudden, they pluck you out and say, "No, you're going to go stay over here with this family."
Yep.
Right.
And you're in a whole different world then.
Yep.
Yes. You're alienated.
Absolutely.
And this is a little something, and it kind of goes with my work with FEMA and trying to restructure FEMA and all. You know, they come back from combat, And instead of transferring them, what if to help them more acclimate back into society, because that's basically what they're having to do. They've been in a completely different society while they were deployed in combat.
Yes.
Different environment, different people, everything. When they bring them back, have them have missions within the country, like Western North Carolina right now. There's so much recovery work and all.
I think that's a beautiful solution.
And that would at least give them some purpose, not on the level that they have, but
Yes.
it would help kind of continue that purpose.
The tribe, the solidarity. Yes.
That would be the transition. There, why can they not look into areas like that need help? Okay.
Well, look at the tornadoes this weekend.
Exactly.
They
I
could
mean,
be out there in Mississippi and Louisiana
exactly,
right now
yeah.
helping.
but
Right.
but our government is just not looking into it, not looking to see if there is some place or something that these folks can do when they come back, because that would be the perfect transition.
Yes, for FEMA to coordinate with our military.
Well, I don't think we're going to have
That would be
FEMA
a
much
beautiful
longer, but
solution.
Well, and see that's part of what I've been working with FEMA is trying not to get rid of it, but have it where it's more local.
Yes.
And to where we can use our military more, because part of the problem is Article 10 won't allow active duty soldiers to participate to only certain amounts.
But only reserves and National Guard?
Right, but they can use active, but only I think it was 1,000 was all they could use during Halloween.
That's got to change.
And
That's
but yeah,
gotta change.
but you got to get to the people to have that conversation to make those changes and
Yes.
put programs into place.
Our
But
Senator
that's-
Budds and our Rousers and our Murphys of North
Yeah.
Carolina.
Well,
yeah.
and see, the thing is, if you do that, you're not only benefiting the soldiers, you're actually reducing the cost to taxpayers for running the program, because you're using
right.
labor that is already being paid, and you're actually benefiting them because now they have a purpose. They're helping people rebuild their lives.
Yes. And it's building
when-
tribes across the state and nation. It's a
Exactly.
beautiful idea. You
And
know,
Before we go any further, we really must break and pay bills again. I
Yes.
apologize.
Yes,
Please
Mary.
It goes
stay
really
with
fast.
us, folks. We'll be right
Mary.
back.
What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, Attorney at Law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, folks, to All Things Brunswick. We're having a very in-depth conversation today on soldier suicide and what can be done for our soldiers to transition back into civilian life once they come from combat. With us, we have Gay Murga, whose son she lost after he returned from deployment. And thank you, Gay, for coming again. We are so happy to have you here.
thank you, Mary, for having me as your guest.
And you wanted to give us some more statistics, I believe, on...
Well, you know, we just discussed based on my research, the 6 primary reasons why you bet you every soldier that comes back from deployment is going to have PTSD. That it's a healthy, normal response, and that it's brain injuries due to the injuries, the career involvement. But I want to give hope. And in all my research, I want to share 3 very powerful solutions.
Good, because we don't have a lot of time, and I am so ready to hear about your talk about in North Carolina. So
Yes.
I am so very curious. Please share this with us.
Well, when I was on Fort Bragg talking to thousands of soldiers, I quickly discovered there shortly after my son's death of the crisis, how many soldiers right there at Fort Bragg were with suicide ideation. And the biggest problem I saw was there was not counseling providing for them that was 100% free and 100% confidential. Those 2 elements were critical because they did not want it in their record
Right.
that they were going to counseling
Yep.
for PTSD struggles. So, a friend of mine who is also pro-military and an ambassador, we both researched and came upon a great organization called StopSoldierSuicide.org. Now, they also have this other name, GoRoger.org. It's a softer name. But they are immensely powerful, they are immensely successful, and have received accolades from our government just how smart and successful they are. And they provide 100% free, 100% confidential cognitive therapy, which is the most effective therapy for any and every active military personnel or vet, no matter where you're located at. May you be in hostile territory, or may you be right here in North Carolina, Alaska, Germany, or California, because they do all their service on the telephone, cell phone, WhatsApp. They're immensely successful. They're not only with a long-term relationship and have a very solid success rate, a relationship that's typically 1.5 years at least, but they're also a wealth of resources wherever you're located. If you may need a service dog, or if you may need a roof over your head, or if you may want equestrian therapy, or if you need assistance with the VA. So all around, I am in love. I am a strong ambassador of GoRoger.org. Google them. Google GoRoger.org. In the very top upper left corner of the first screen that pops up is a little tab entitled Get Help. They'll ask you to fill out 5-6 generic questions, information, what branch you are or were in, name, contact information, and they should contact you within 24 hours to start the relationship. The second service that my research has indicated has phenomenal results is HBOT. HBOT stands for hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It was originally, these tanks were originally created for divers who came up too quick.
Right.
The bends.
Yep.
Then about 10 years ago, professional sportsmen and women were using it for a quicker recovery when they would have an injury because them needing to get back on the field. And now HBOT is being actively used with a great successful rate for our active military and vets of all branches that have PTSD or traumatic brain injury. There is a corporation, an organization right here in North Carolina that have tanks that if a vet or active military personnel does not want to report it on their insurance or cannot pay for it, it is 100% free, therefore 100% confidential. They are located. The tanks are located in Durham, North Carolina. The corporation that maintains the tanks is a corporation by the name of Extiviatia. However, to get on the waiting list, you need to contact a local, right here in Brunswick County, you need to contact an organization entitled HBOT for Heroes. It is capital H, capital B, capital O, capital T, the number 4, and then the word heroes spelled out .org. They will get you in one of those tanks. Right now, currently, the waiting list is approximately a month. They are also actively fundraising to have tanks throughout the state of North Carolina. Their first goal is to have a tank right here in Wilmington, with the goal of maybe 2 years. I am just so excited about this therapy. My ideal suggestion for anyone that I knew that was struggling with PTSD would be to contact both of these organizations to get the cognitive therapy through goroger.org while you're waiting on the wait list to get hyperbaric oxygen therapy through hbotforheroes.org. The third thing I want to share with everyone listening who are in the active military or a vet or know someone is that there is a phenomenal service going on the weekend of May 8th through 10 in Wilmington, North Carolina. It's through the American Legions, the local American Legions of Pender County and Brunswick County. It is an immensely successful program for those who have been struggling with getting services and benefits through the VA. Let me share with you more of the detail. Once again, it is May 8 through May 10 of this year. Thursday and Friday, 9 a.m. through 3 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. through 2 p.m. It's highly successful because there is a slew of American Legions there, ensuring that every service member that shows up, every vet that shows up will be seen.
Do you have an address?
I do. I'm coming to that. The address is at the National Guard Armory at 2414 Infantry Road in Wilmington, North Carolina. It is immensely successful because of the concoction of who is there to assist. They have representatives from the Department of Veterans Affairs Service, the Department of Veterans Affairs Benefits, and the Department of Veterans Affairs Healthcare. And that combination makes the solutions just so much more time efficient. A couple of key points if you intend to attend is they're asking that you must come prepared with proper documentation about your case. The DD-214 and all medical records about your disability, both military and civilian. They have hundreds to show up. So they're asking if at all possible you show up on a certain day based on the last 2 digits of your Social Security number. For Thursday, May 8th, all those whose Social Security number ends between 00 and 33 should come and register that morning. Friday, May 9th, those with Social Security numbers ending in 34 through 66 should come and register and be seen that day. And Saturday, May 10th, those with Social Security numbers ending in 67 through 99 should come, register, and wait to be seen that day.
This is wonderful, and we are about out of time, but I thank you so much for sharing those three. Now this is hope. to me.
Oh, I cannot emphasize how many vets say that they are so pleased that they came, that it was so
Yes.
successful.
Yes.
The easiness of it, the successfulness of it, I cannot emphasize. They leave almost giddy.
It's wonderful. Folks, if you have the opportunity to donate, to support, to inform, please look into soldier suicide. Go to this GoRoger.org, Google it. Go to highbotforheroes.org. Any way, anything that you can do to help. It is a very serious issue. And Gay, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
joining us today and offering all this
I'm here for
wonderful
you. I'm here
information.
for the vets that are listening, for the loved ones that have a vet or an active military personnel. I'm here for them. I love them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Folks, please stay with us, and we will be back next week with another show concerning veterans. But as I said, in the meantime, please get involved in this. It's a serious issue. Thank you so much. Good night.